Wrestling was a pretty bleak place towards the end of the 2010s. Well, in North America at least. That landscape had been well and truly dominated by Vince McMahon's WWE for what felt like an age. And a lack of real competition once WCW died a death ultimately led to the sports entertainment product going from a must-see, edge-of-your-seat thrill ride to a bit of a chore really. The occasional program would trick you into regaining a bit of faith in the process, but that hope would then soon be crushed by the absolutely despicable man holding the pen. In short, an alternative, or an escape if you will, was needed for many. And that is precisely what burst into the industry back in early 2019. But what if it never did? Well, if you've ever asked yourself exactly that, then by howdy do I have the video for you. Because I'm Gareth, this is What Culture Wrestling, and here is what if Tony Khan never launched AEW. Before we jump into the what if, don't worry, we'll get there, let's have a look at the how it happened and the what went down next for a second. While it was eventually revealed that Tony Khan had actually begun working on his new wrestling project as far back as April 2018, All Elite Wrestling only officially became a thing on January 1st, 2019, with an Elite fresh off of a game-changing All-In event announcing its creation on an episode of Being the Elite. And the wrestling world was never the same. Gone were the days of WWE being the only real big dog in the States. World-class in-ring action, blood, curse words, and deeply compelling long-term storylines all utterly refreshed the business many hardcores and casuals had all been falling out of love with for years. Now, it hasn't all been marvelous, of course. There have been some ups and downs. Simon Miller, do not come after me. And for every transcendent AEW moment, a baffling or frustrating one is never too far around the corner, like the signing of Ric Flair or the half-assed booking of the women's division. But for the most part, Tony and his father Shad's decision to invest in this much-needed alternative has definitely changed the industry for the better. Or has it? Would a world where TK didn't fancy giving this pro wrestling stuff a go really have been that agonizing? Would certain corners of the industry actually still be thriving in an AEW-less corner of the multiverse? Well, with that in mind, one thing is actually for sure. Pretty much every one of the big promotions out there in the wrestling world would look completely different if TK hadn't fired up the AEW machine in the first place. For starters, had AEW not forced them to up their game and shown them that their audience had a genuine appetite for world-class in-ring action and slow burn narratives, WWE are not currently putting out their most engaging work in years. They're not selling out buildings month after month without a certain bloodline, one that was no doubt influenced by AEW's own long-term Elite Hangman Page tale. And they also wouldn't be selling out those buildings without a certain Cody Rhodes either. He wouldn't be the bona fide megastar babyface that he is today without his time being one of the faces of AEW. And in a world with no AEW, perhaps Triple H's black and gold version of NXT is still one of the hottest products in all of wrestling. Look, with or without AEW, it still probably would have ended up on USA at some point in the future, but without the alternative absolutely destroying it during the Wednesday Night Wars, that odd 2.0 era likely never happens, and NXT actually still remains the small WWE territory where independent darlings go to earn a decent paycheck whilst putting on thrilling displays on the takeover stage. New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor would probably be in stronger health than they are today too, with the likes of the Elite, Kazuchika Okada, Will Ospreay, and so many more leaving these particular companies when they did to go and pursue their AEW dreams, all unquestionably contributing to their drops in popularity. And is the current independent scene not actually all but dead without AEW scooping up the top names who aren't trying to hit the hard cam on WWE TV? Maybe not. Oh, and maybe WWE are actually eventually successful in their bids to purchase the aforementioned ROH without Tony Khan competing to add to his growing empire, with ROH becoming a tab on the WWE network rather than a barely watched extension of AEW. Khan's vision of what professional wrestling should be, however, did actually lead to the knocking down of many a door. Some of them were once even seen as forbidden, and likely would have remained exactly that if Khan had opted to put his money into a different sport instead. A top American promotion putting on crossover events with the likes of CMLL, AAA, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Ring of Honor just wasn't really a conceivable thing back in the 2018 wrestling landscape, with WWE in particular often acting like the wrestling world outside of their own doors simply did not exist since the turn of the century. The lending of talents and building of relationships within the industry has benefited both an audience who will never grow tired of watching once unthinkable dream matches, and the wrestlers themselves who long to test themselves all over the world. WWE have even gotten in on the crossover action recently, which in itself is a mind-blowing thing to say. But none of those crossovers happen in a pre-AEW, Tony Khan-less version of this wrestling industry, folks. And possibly never would if he kept his wallet in his pocket. But what about the action itself, I hear you ask? Well, from the minute TK chucked out his first stick of dynamite, it was clear that this president and booker man was not somebody who was obsessed with just one specific style of pro wrestling. This guy was a fan of pretty much all of it. Strong style, lucha, sports entertainment, extreme, sprint, epic, comedy, you name them, Tony would try and squeeze them into his big ol' wrestling buffet. And it is that something for everyone approach that has actually influenced their #1 rival too, with a post-McMahon WWE now seeming more open than ever to the different ways to skin this particular cat. But we're also experiencing a version of this industry that now doesn't feel so systematically cruel either, something that Tony Khan can again actually take a lot of credit for. TK isn't a perfect president by any means, and he is not above going on a mad one on Twitter/X. His handling of the tragic deaths of Brody Lee and Jay Briscoe, Owen Hart's legacy, and Jon Moxley's decision to enter rehab, though, are just a few examples of Khan dealing with sensitive moments in a refreshingly respectful way. And the wrestling world's definitely a better place for that. Obviously, the chances of all-time classics like the Young Bucks versus Omega and Page, and Punk versus MJF, and Ospreay versus Danielson are pretty damn slim without Khan also kicking off this revolution too. But who's to say that those stars and others wouldn't go on to produce these magical moments in wrestling history elsewhere, eh? AEW's creation, thanks to the combination and work of Tony Khan, Chris Jericho, The Elite, Brandy Rhodes, and so many more, didn't just create an alternative for fans. It did the same thing for many a talented wrestler too. So if said different option was never funded by the Khan family in the first place, it's not too hard to imagine a scenario where many a WWE to AEW jumper just stayed put in the former for a little while longer, or possibly even for the remainder of their careers. With no Land of All Elite to explore, perhaps Bryan Danielson just stays with WWE for a couple more years, and the sports entertainment organization find a way to give him his bloody Japanese dreams by striking up a working relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, they were apparently in talks at one point, you never know. Edge wouldn't have had his head turned by the elite freedom he could see going down in TK's playground. Perhaps Saraya makes her own shocking return from a career-ending injury inside of a WWE ring instead. Jericho possibly would have continued not to appear on any US shows outside of WWE out of respect for his former boss and workplace. This was something that he did actually famously note before, he went and signed an AEW deal. The best in the world's wrestling comeback would not have been an elite one either. CM Punk himself noted just how close he was to re-signing with WWE in 2019-2020, around that time. And without genuine competition for his signature, a WWE return would have surely just been a matter of time, right? Especially with voice of the voiceless fan Nick Khan in a position of power. What about the lads who put the elite in AEW? Well, the Young Bucks have actually gone on record to say that WWE was once seemingly their own and Kenny Omega's next destination when the contracts expired, before Khan swooped in and decided to offer them a different direction. But what if they did actually end up signing with WWE in the end? I mean, it does look like they were this close to doing it. Would they have been given the freedom to continue being those generational performers that captured the imaginations of people all around the globe? Or would Kenny and the Bucks have just joined the pile of other world-class workers chewed up and spat out by the soulless WWE machine? Depressingly, it's probably the latter, isn't it? AEW also offered some of the brightest talents on the planet a different environment to hone their craft. Meaning your Britt Bakers, Jungle Boys, Sammy Guevara's, Darby Allin's and MJF's didn't end up becoming overly polished sports entertainers after being cycled through the Performance Center system for a few years. You know that Allen who'd go on to create Car Crash Chaos and Magic alongside the Stinger on AEW programming? Yeah, he's probably lifting the WWE Speed Championship in an eliteless version of this industry right about now, isn't he? Being able to potentially offer their services to a genuine rival has also led to stars all over the business finally earning the massive paydays they've always deserved too, with talents having greater leverage than they would have had in an eliteless situation where WWE's monopoly continued. And speaking of deals, maybe Khan himself would have gotten himself involved in a different one in this alternative universe. Tony Khan had wanted to get into the wrestling business for his entire life. So even if this driven, ambitious lover of all things wrestling didn't actually end up seeing eye to eye with the elite and the other folks who helped start up AEW, there's a good chance Khan would have continued looking for a way into the madness. And in this all-elite free version of the wrestling universe, maybe a Tony without any AEW ties finds himself in control of the biggest wrestling promotion on the planet instead. The McMahons being booted out of the business and replaced by TK TK and his pops would be an absolute game changer to say the least. It'd also be hilarious. And a far more authentic, real sports feeling product would likely become the norm for the company. Or maybe Khan just bites off more than he can chew and struggles to really drive this massive wrestling juggernaut. Which would eventually lead to a rather awkward conversation with Papa H. I got 2 words for you, Hunter. Come back! At the time when TK did decide to commit to the idea of a new exciting promotion, the space and opportunity was certainly there to try something bold. So even if Khan got cold feet on the idea of AEW in the end, or the Khans just turned their attention to the Fed instead, who's to say that somebody else wouldn't have seized this chance to create history and make a boatload of money? I mean, not me, I'm skinned, but surely some other clever business person out there would have seen this opportunity. The stars did perfectly align to create something truly elite in 2018-19 though. And while the feeling might not be quite as consistent now as it was at the riveting start, AEW still and probably will forever stand as a remarkable achievement. One that has had a major part to play in the current wrestling boom that many people are actually now starting to take for granted. Wrestling was once a dirty word throughout many a childhood, my own included. Whereas it's now a place where some of the most famous people on planet Earth take bumps for your entertainment. A source of entertainment which boasts 2 companies capable of selling out stadiums. A place where your intelligence isn't insulted anywhere near as often as it used to be, and actually quite complex and enthralling stories are told. A hobby folks are once again proud to wear on their t-shirts as they walk on down the street. Wrestling just isn't anywhere near as hot, unpredictable, or exciting without Tony Khan's AEW breaking the rules, pushing boundaries, and challenging the big boys to do better. So you know what I say? Long may the TK chaos continue. Have you enjoyed what you've been watching here today? Well, if you have, then go and click on this video right here, because it's another one of our what if things. We've got a big old series. Go and click on it, you'll have a good time. I'm there again being all bald and fun. So thank you very much. Bye bye.